Hey, fifth grade, today for writing workshop, we're starting a brand new genre and unit. We're going to be writing memoirs. First and second quarter, we learned a lot about what good writers do and what good writing is, and we practiced those things by writing free verse poems. I like to start out that way because free verse poems are compact, and that means that they're short and we can write a lot of them, and so we get a lot of good practice doing the things that good writers do, and we do that more frequently because those pieces are shorter. We're going to step it up a little bit in this second quarter. We're going to be focusing on memoirs. Memoirs are a personal narrative, and that's just really about where you tell about an experience, something that happened to you. Memoirs specifically, though, focus on a memory, okay? And then you bring that memory to life for your reader. Sometimes, if it's a couple of different short memories, you could string those together if they're linked in some way, and we would call that kind of a vignette, but it's still a memoir. So we'll get into the specifics later. Today we're going to be talking about the qualities of ineffective and effective memoirs. And because of time constraints, we're only going to get to the qualities of ineffective memoirs right now. So let's get started. Why memoir? It means the world becomes yours. If you don't do it, it drifts away and takes a whole piece of yourself with it, like an amputation. To attack it and get it under control, it's like taking possession of your life, isn't it? Well, memoirs are memories, right? They're narrative pieces that bring a memory of yours to life. And so Ted Hughes, a writer, said these things because he believes that when we go back into those memories, it's like taking control of our life. And when he talks about attacking it and getting it under control, I believe he's talking about or referring to the fact that there's usually a good reason why your brain or your heart has hung on to specific memories. There's some kind of significance to that memory. And sometimes we're not aware of it when we start to write about it, but through the process of writing about it, that is revealed to us. So we've talked before when we were writing poems about the rule of so what, and that if you don't know why you're writing about that, then your reader isn't going to know why you're writing about that specific topic. So that will apply to memoirs as well. I'm going to go ahead and keep going. Mrs. Atwell has already taken a stab at this memoir, but she didn't do her best. Instead, she wrote a bad, on-purpose memoir. Your job as writers and readers of narratives is to read this one of hers and analyze what went wrong, to name the qualities of a good memoir that aren't here. Troubleshoot this bad writing as a way to begin recognizing and naming the qualities of a good story. All right, guys, we're going to take a look at her on-purpose bad memoir. It's entitled The First Time I Ever Told a Lie to My Mother. It was 1956. I was 5 years old, and it was the fall of my kindergarten year in Mrs. Brown's class. I'd never lied to my mother before, but on this day I told a big lie. Here's the story of what happened on that day. It all started when we were at nap time. Earlier that day, we played with clay in art, and a really good piece of clay was lying on the floor. I don't know why, but I picked it up and started rolling it around on my skirt. It made a big mess on my skirt. When I got home, my mother asked me what was on my skirt. I didn't want to get in trouble, so I told her a boy named Glenn had put clay all over my skirt. She didn't believe me because my brother's name was Glenn, but she didn't punish me. I never could figure that out. She just sent me outside to play. I'll never forget that day. The end. All right, guys. Let's take a minute to talk about what isn't working in this memoir. What's weak here and what's missing? What aren't you able to do as readers of stories? That's what I'm looking for here. So I'm going to jump back to the memoir itself, and we're going to talk about some things that are not working. So the first thing I want to talk about is this title. This title is boring. It's a label. It's not an inviting combination of words. We know that titles have a job to do, and this one isn't doing it. There was ineffective repetition in this memoir as well. Now, we talked about that in free verse poetry. We talked about ineffective repetition kind of makes your face scrunch up because it's awkward when you read it out loud. Well, there was some ineffective repetition going on in this memoir as well. When she started repeating lie, she said, I'd never lied to my mother before, but on this day I told a big lie. And then it just was too close together. It didn't need to be repeated that many times. And then when she was down here and she was talking about skirt, but I picked it up and started rolling it around on my skirt. It made a big mess on my skirt. When I got home, my mother asked me what was on my skirt. It's just awkward and it doesn't work. The beginning is weak. It's an introductory paragraph of facts, not a lead that brings readers into the action. If you think about what you learned in free verse poetry, good leads start inside the experience. We don't want to clear our throat, for a couple of stanzas if we're writing poetry, and we don't want to be so robotic in our introductory paragraph in our memoirs that our reader doesn't get pulled in. So this one doesn't grab us. It's just facts. It was 1956. I was 5 years old. It was the fall of my kindergarten year, Mrs. Brown's class. I never lied to my mother. It's just weak. It doesn't lead the readers into the action, okay? The reader doesn't think or feel anything at the end. I mean, it was just short and quick and to the point. It's just a news report of what happened, okay? She told a lie. Her mom didn't believe her because her brother's name was Glenn, and then she sent her outside to play. I don't know what your guys' homes are like, but when I was growing up, if I had told a lie to my mom and she totally knew I was lying, she wouldn't have said, all right, now you hustle on out and go play. There would have been a discussion. There would have maybe been some consequences. There definitely would have been the mom look and maybe a hand on the hip. There would have been something here. And she says, she just sent me outside to play. I'll never forget that day. We have no idea why she'll never forget that day, unless possibly her mom was abducted by aliens, and that's why her mom said, oh, go out and play, even though she totally knew she was lying. So this doesn't add up. This is not realistic. We can't really relate to this. We're sitting here at the end kind of feeling confused. Plus, it ends the end. Good conclusions do not end the end. They need to wrap things up for the reader, but they don't need to say it. The end is kind of an insult at this point to our reader because they should be able to tell that we're done sharing our memory with them. We shouldn't have to announce it in that way. Okay? I don't really know what the point of this memoir is. There's no theme. The reader can't tell why the writer is writing about this. There's no so what or a theme. Like we still don't know why she hung on to this memory. Now, I have an idea because she just sent her out to play. I have an idea that maybe Mrs. Atwell thought she was going to be in so much trouble. One, because she ruined her skirt, but two, because she told a lie to her mother and then there was no consequence. But we don't know that because it's not there in the memoir, at least not yet. The language in this memoir is really simple. There are a lot of weak and bad words, and there's not like bad like curse words, but just not very descriptive, just bland, generic, general. There's no figurative language, and it's not very interesting. A reader can't see, hear, or feel anything because there are no sensory details. I mean, if I told a lie to my mom or I came home after school, there would be some tone involved, there would be body language, and you don't get any of that because there are no sensory details. So we can't see what she sees, hear what she hears, feel what she felt. It's just not there. A reader can't see people in action, their movements, gestures, facial expressions. I think I talked about that already, actually. People don't talk. There's no dialogue to help show what people are like and how they feel. I think I kind of alluded to this earlier, too. There would be something said. My mother would have had something to say about this if I had ruined my skirt and I had told a lie and she totally knew it. Okay? She said she sent her out to play, but we don't even get those words. She's just describing what was said. So good memoirs always include dialogue because it's what allows us to be there and hear what the person who's telling the memoir heard. There's no personality, none of the writer's thoughts, feelings, and observations. It's too short and the pace is too fast to draw readers in and involve them or help them make a movie in their minds. I'm going to go ahead and let you in on a little secret. All of those things that I just talked about, I created a list. That list can be found on page 23 of your ELA reference folder. The reason I think it's important that we look at the ineffective memoir and we make a list like this is because we know as writers we're going to be really bad at things before we get really good at things. And so if we make a list of what's bad in her memoir, maybe when we start to write our first memoir, we can come back to this list and make sure that we're not making those same mistakes that Mrs. Atwell made. All right, guys, that's really all I have for you. Please tune in tomorrow. We will be taking a look at the real memoir, not the bad on purpose memoir. We'll take a look at a good example, and then we'll do the same thing with it. We will list the things that work and why it is better. I love you and miss you, and I'm excited about getting started with memoirs. Bye, guys.